when I ultimately started to really get deep into what causes all these illnesses, like the root causes of these problems, it was all disconnection from nature. Now that has many different faces, right? So there's lack of natural light. There's artificial light at night. There's a disconnection from the Earth's electromagnetic field. There's connection to or exposure to false or artificial electromagnetic radiation. So microwaves, radio waves, your household electronics, other people's wireless technologies and electromagnetic radiations. There's artificial processed food.
Hey, welcome to the Reverse Aging Podcast. If you're looking for the Quantum Biology Collective, it's on Substack. Go find us there. We're doing lots of cool stuff. And this podcast continues as you know it and love it, just with a slightly different name. So today I'm talking to Dr. Leland Stillman, who has a practice where he is dedicated to reversing autoimmunity, which is also kind of the same as accelerated aging, right? This is all just our cells responding to an insane environment where the signals are causing such chaos in our bodies that we're all getting sick and aging faster than we should, and on and on and on. The good news is it doesn't have to be that way. Once we understand this, we can change it. And the only downside is there's not a lot of places to go that are explaining this. It might feel like that if you're on Instagram, but truly out in the world, no one knows what we're talking about. So do your friends and family a favor, share this podcast with them, let them know that we are, in fact, bioenergetic beings and that the signals going into our body matter, and they can make us sick and they can make us age faster, or they can do the reverse. They can heal us and they can make us live longer and healthier. And speaking of that, I really get into my journey with the light water machine in this episode. And I just want to say this machine, it's not like a regular water machine. There is nothing else like it in the world. You can listen to my experience and see why, but I'm just saying you might want to start with phototherapy patches and work up. It's an investment in terms of finances, but it's also it's a lot. It really will take things to the next level, and that's going to be different for everybody. Anyway, all of the links are at qbcpod.com, qbcpod.com. Go there and click on tools I use and put your email in to get more information about the phototherapy patches if you're new to this idea. Because as I said, drinking light water, it's a whole other thing. So here's my interview with Dr. Leland Stillman. Enjoy. Dr. Leland Stillman, welcome to the Reverse Aging Club.
It's great to be here. Very excited to hear about the podcast rechristening.
Yes, it's going to be fun. And on that topic, so when I say reverse aging, for me, it is a philosophy and not just, what kind of face cream I use or something like that. So I'm curious what the term, how you would, how does it land for you, the term reverse aging?
I love it. I love it. I think that the modern medical paradigm that people have sadly been laboring under for some generations now is just coming apart at the seams, which is so exciting for those of us who have been laboring to birth the new paradigm of medicine, which is frankly in some ways a return to its roots and a realization of its loftiest and earliest ambitions. So I often quote Hippocrates, the greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. And that, of course, means that my most and greatest passion is teaching people, which is why I love podcasting. And I think the whole idea of reverse aging really, I think it challenges the assumption that aging is inevitable and that as much as you've aged is how much you've aged and there's nothing you can do about it, which is just not true. And here's how I view this. So the more I look at health and wellness, the more I think of it in terms of repair deficit. So, people talk about inflammation, inflammaging, all these different processes, chronic inflammation, this kind of inflammation, that kind of inflammation. Really, when you get down to it, why do we have inflammation? Why do we age? It's a lack of cellular repair. And if you can match the demand and the damage done to your body on a day-to-day basis with the amount of repair that you do, then number one, you'll age as slowly as possible. And if you've aged prematurely, as many people have, you can undo that damage and walk back your biological age. So that's really how I view it. And what does that mean? The simplest analogy for repair deficit, in my view, is really like bad debt. You can accumulate this monster out of credit cards, mortgages, business loans, you name it. And if you're not paying down more than just the interest, you just get worse. And I see a lot of people come to us who are confused and frustrated and upset. Fun fact, one of your graduates from your program at the Applied Quantum Biology Institute for Applied Quantum Biology just dropped a podcast with me about her experience at our practice. And her name's JD, and it's Jaydee. And that podcast, I think, just came out today. And if it didn't come out today, it came out sometime between now and when you drop this recording. So you'll be able to find it if you just look for that name. And she talked about mineral balancing, light therapy, all the things that we do. And it's a great story. And it's a classic story of this. I was feeling older than my age. I didn't understand why I was falling apart, why I had these issues. We took a comprehensive approach. We looked at all the different things that could be undermining my physiology, and we fixed those things in a specific order in a way that didn't overwhelm and didn't confuse and didn't stress her system in a way that disrupted her life, which is a big thing I see happening, particularly in the integrative, functional, natural wellness space. And she feels worlds better. And it's very routine that patients tell me, I haven't felt this good in I don't know how long, years, decades. We see that happening sometimes in months in our programs, right? No guarantees, because some people don't see a result. But the trend overwhelmingly with the people who show up, do the work, and follow the recommendations, and who've got a real problem that we know we can help them with, get significant improvements. So that's what reverse aging means to me.
I love that. And it reminds me of the concept of neuroplasticity and how, I don't know if you're old enough, but I'm old enough to have like a vague recollection of a time where it was like, learn everything you can while you're young, because that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you didn't get a good education or you had a bad childhood, too bad for you. Your brain is over and it's locked in, and that's it. And then all of the neuroscientific field opened up. Neuroplasticity was discovered, and it's like, no. You can keep learning till the day you die. And the way you described reverse aging felt like we're in a moment, the way we were with the brain 20 years ago, we are now with aging.
I totally agree. I regularly have patients tell me that their behavior, their thinking is sharper, is better. They're remembering things better. On the note of neuroplasticity, I think a lot of the loss of neuroplasticity really has to do with trauma and negative emotion. One thing that's fascinating to me about what we do is that patients will often remark, I feel like I'm processing emotions in like a different new way, or like emotions that I haven't dealt with in a long time are coming up, and I'm finally getting like emotional release, which can actually be kind of tough, because they'll say, I'm weepy and I'm kind of emotional, but I feel better. Like I feel like I'm just a more well-adjusted, balanced person. Like I'm more myself, which I think is really deeply gratifying.
Yes. And so indicative of the fact that everything is connected. We can't just like go to a psychiatrist and deal with trauma and then go to a doctor and get our supplement. It's all together.
Yes.
And anyway, back to what you originally said, where the story we've been told, aging is aggressive and non-negotiable. And if you've accelerated your aging, too bad for you. And then we're like, no, there's some aging plasticity. There's fluidity to this. We can undo damage.
Definitely.
And I want to circle back to what you just said about the emotions and stuff, because I'm on week 3 of drinking light water. So we're gonna come back to that.
Fun.
So put a pin in the feelings coming up discussion. I did want to just stay the course on reverse aging.
Awesome.
Yes. So there is neuroplasticity. There is also like aging plasticity, aging fluidity. We're not.
Yes.
I feel like everything we've been told by the medical establishment that's like, this is it, too bad, is not true.
It's such a toxic mindset. But really what it is, it's a mindset. It's this mindset of, I went to school for this thing, and therefore I know this thing. And I think it's bizarre. It's almost like if they didn't learn it in medical school, it must not be true, which just so dangerously limits your perspective on the world. I mean, even if you just said, hey, maybe if you didn't encounter it in medical school, it could be true, and they just didn't have time to tell you, right? But instead, it's like, oh, that's not true. That doesn't work. That's snake oil. That's hogwash. That's whatever. It's like when you actually talk to some of these people about, like, for example, EMF. Oh, that doesn't hurt anybody. Oh, it's harmless. Have you actually read the literature? There's a lot of it, and there's a lot of really concerning findings that any reasonable person can read. And if you're not great at reading scientific studies in 2026, guess what? You can download the studies and you can upload them to whatever large language model you want and say, like, hey, how might this apply to human biology and physiology? And could this affect my aging? And I guarantee you'll be shocked at the honesty with which the model will give you that answer, at least for now. But don't be surprised if the people coding it on the back end kind of have some things that they manipulate.
Okay, I just quickly on that topic, I know a guy who left Google to start an LLM that it's called Metabolic Wise. You would love it. Metabolicwise.com. And he has trained it on all of the new research and literature. So it's trained on metabolic health, it's trained on quantum biology, it's trained on circadian biology.
That's exciting.
You just go in and ask it questions, and it will give you answers unrestricted by the back end shenanigans of the bigger companies. Anyway.
And I think that's really important because they have a vested interest in making sure that people don't get the memo that artificial light at night is cooking their brain, not to make it too dramatic, and that non-native EMF, artificial microwave, radio wave radiation, cell phones, radio waves, magnetic electrical fields are having a negative effect on human physiology, let alone the whole biosphere. I mean, I get regular updates from my friend Ole Johansson, who I've podcasted with, and I think you've podcasted with, or have you not?
I have not, but I follow him somewhere, and he's super interesting. I got to track him down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I regularly get updates. He's like, here's this article on how the EMF are affecting the bats. That was this week. Or the honeybees, or the whatever. This stuff is coming out all over the world. So yeah.
Yeah. So the good news is there's always stuff we can do. We are infinitely flexible. And I was just listening to you on my friend Lynn Hardy's podcast, The Aging Games. That's a great podcast. People listening haven't heard it. Mm-hmm. And she asked you, what is the number one thing for women that women should be doing as they get older, but really at any age? And you said, connect to nature, but having a connection to nature. And it reminded me, so I have a childhood friend, and my childhood friends, we've all reached the age where most of our parents are ill or deceased. And I have a childhood friend whose mother, I see her maybe once every 5 years. We cross paths when I'm home visiting. And I saw her recently, and she is so healthy. She looks so good. She's one of those women where you're like, her age, you're like, 65, 7. Like you just don't really know. She just looks good. She has energy. She's always doing things. So we were at this little gathering, and she was there, and then she left. And I'm like, Nikki, your mom looks so good. Like she's glowing, so much energy. She looks so beautiful. And my friend said, yeah, she spends all her time gardening.
Uh-huh.
And she said, she wears a hat, but I can't get her to wear sunscreen.
Brilliant. I love it.
So that came to my mind when you were prescribing connection to nature as the number one foundational habit and practice and life that we should be aspiring to.
Yes. And I think in a fundamental way, that disconnection from nature is in a single phrase, really what got me curious about medicine in the first place, and then got me to start my own practice, and then led to the book that I'm releasing in August, The End of Autoimmunity. Because what I saw happening, and really like the story of my whole career, was people got very disconnected from nature. I grew up in Manhattan and Richmond, Virginia, and very urban or suburban environments where people lived indoors, used a lot of technology, highly educated, high achieving. Everybody went to college, went to grad school, or had a successful career of some kind. But, the kids I grew up around, not just the kids, but the parents, the grandparents, people were falling apart. They were getting all these horrible chronic diseases. They just didn't feel well. Like they might not have a disease. They might have a sort of, we call it a mystery diagnosis. Like you feel terrible, but your labs are normal. So good luck, right? It's sort of the way that goes in the conventional system. Or it'll be something like, well, diet and exercise. It's like, I am dieting and I am exercising, or I'm too tired to exercise, or I feel like I can't eat any food. I'm like, what do I do? Right. And I saw this just over and over and over again. And then I went through the conventional medical training system and learned a ton. But when I ultimately started to really get deep into what causes all these illnesses, like the root causes of these problems, it was all disconnection from nature. Now that has many different faces, right? So there's lack of natural light. There's artificial light at night. There's a disconnection from the Earth's electromagnetic field. There's connection to or exposure to false or artificial electromagnetic radiation. So microwaves, radio waves, your household electronics, other people's wireless or wired technologies and electromagnetic radiations. There's artificial processed food. There's and then I think when we say disconnection from nature, I think what's really interesting is if you put people in nature, they do things that they then stop doing if you put them in a high-tech environment. So I'll give you an example. If you take a bunch of people and you take them camping and no one has their cell phone or their laptop or anything, what are they naturally going to do when it gets dark? They're going to gather firewood. They're going to start a fire and they're going to sit around the fire talking to each other, right?
Right.
And so today it's like, I think it was Charlie Kirk who said something like attending church virtually is the difference between having a fire and is the difference between having a fire and watching one on YouTube. There's no heat. And in a very real sense, I don't think he understood the depth of like that analogy in terms of the profundity of what he was saying, because it's that infrared light, it's that social connection. Mm-hmm. So all this stuff just turned into, oh, wow, we need to get people back to nature in a way that honors their fundamental biological needs, their essence, if you will. But at the same time, we can't go back in time, because if we all sold all our worldly possessions and, lived on a homestead, society would sort of collapse. And at the end of the day, you've got to have we have a fair number of patients or friends who are in the military. Like at the end of the day, bad people are going to do bad things and they're going to use technology to do that. So you also got to have people who are protecting us against that kind of thing. So the idea that all this technology is going to go away is a total utopian pipe dream. And we just have to learn to live as a society in a way where we don't destroy ourselves, let alone our most vulnerable, the elderly, children, et cetera, with these technologies that are very insidious. They have this slow deterioration is what it causes in people's bodies, let alone their minds. And it gets worse over generations, which I also think is fascinating and also underreported. So if you have, and you'll see this you'll hear this from patients, like granddad lived to 104, never saw a doctor, and just farmed all day. Dad got a job in an office, artificial light, staying up late, television was invented. We had a phone, we had normal sort of mid 1900s technology. He died 10, 15 years earlier than granddad. And the 45-year-old man I'm talking to is falling apart at 45 and wondering why, right? That's a classic story you'll hear from patients and families. And what this means is that the environment as a whole, the lifestyle as a whole, has been degraded in some combination of ways. And nobody wants this. It's why, amazingly, Zach Lawn just won the Republican primary in Iowa, running basically on a platform against glyphosate. When you run on a platform threatening the chemical that is the chemical where you buy the most tons per state per year, you know something is radically changing, because nobody wants this modern. Yeah, I know. Did you not know that?
No, I don't really follow politics.
I know, but this one was really exciting. It was like, wow.
That is crazy, though. I mean, for a candidate, I mean, of any party to win on an anti-glyphosate platform in a state that is hugely reliant on it. Wow.
It would be like somebody running. It would be like running on an anti-technology ticket in San Jose, California.
In Silicon Valley.
Hey, everyone. Non-native EMF are terrible. We're going to hardwire everything and get everybody fiber optic cable here in San Jose. Vote for me.
Wow.
Right?
That's incredible.
I know.
Well, in my town, so I live in, about 45 minutes north of Manhattan. Half the town is, Manhattan professionals. There is a massive parent revolt against screens in elementary school. There are petitions, there are group chats, there's a working group.
Wonderful.
They are
great.
And you know what? My children are past that. So I'm like watching from the sidelines. I'm like, oh, wow. Like these new parents who are paying attention to something, I guess the research showing that technology is not helpful to children really in any capacity. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, we do not want we want to minimize any moment where our childhood is mediated by a screen. So get them out. So the glyphosate, the screens, like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, things are really changing rapidly, which is very exciting. And it's very exciting to be really like on the cutting edge of integrative medicine, where patients are coming in from the conventional system ready for something new, something different, very excited to see what's possible. And we have such exciting tools to help them. And it's just getting better and better. I feel like I keep talking to colleagues about new stuff coming out, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is really exciting. And part of this is actually, ironically, being mediated by technology, because you have the ability for doctors and scientists to collaborate across continents with such tremendous speed and almost zero cost, which is really remarkable. It was not previously the way, and that's part of why I'm so excited for your new Journal of Applied Quantum Biology. I think you're going to get some really exciting submissions, and we are looking forward to publishing when we have the time.
Wonderful. We would love that. Because that is exactly what it's for. It's like there's all of this incredible work being done applying this new science, but it's not being tracked and archived in a way that it can have influence on the medical community or have influence on standard of care.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things about that, Meredith, that I think a lot about and that I hope you'll consider as you launch the journal, is that the conventional, what I came to realize after reading people like Marcia Angel and Richard Smith, he was the editor of the BMJ, she was the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, two of the top medical journals in the world. They're two of the big five. There's 5 medical journals that are just the titans of the field. And they were editors for 2 of them, and they both had the same sentiment. They just said these have become advertising machines for the pharmaceutical industry. But I think what people don't realize is that's much more insidious than just, oh, this product has a great publication behind it. It's this. They trained doctors to think about therapeutics in a way that was fundamentally impractical. Let me give you an example. I have a patient who recently tried our high-dose vitamin C protocol and just raved about it. She felt so good on the vitamin C protocol. Now, the thing is, not everybody raves about it. A lot of people come back to me and they say, yeah, I did it. And they don't notice a huge shift. So let's say that you have a therapeutic that you study in a conventional way and you give it to 100 people. And for one of them, it solves all of their problems. Like they would have spent $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 on medical care if it weren't for that therapeutic, right? Well, if you study that in 100 people and only one of them gets that result, and you study it the way that we're used to studying drugs, you'll come up with the conclusion that it's not valuable. But the really crazy thing about this is these are not remedies that are thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like $20 for a bottle of this supplement or $100 for a really nice high-end bottle of another supplement, and for a significant supply. So what people don't realize is that the medical community has been trained to think about therapeutics in a way that's totally contrary to the way that ordinary people think about them, which is sort of like, hey, I have this thing. It costs 10, 20, $50. Here's this review online. This person had a great outcome. Let's say that review is 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100 people. Are you ready to spend that money to just see if you get that outcome? People do that all the time. And people say, oh, that's buying snake oil, or, oh, there's no evidence. It's like, well, look, you have to change the way that the journals think about evidence. Because really what I would read with curiosity is you tried a protocol, let's say a high dose supplement protocol, in a specific group of people. They have a specific diagnosis. And here are all of the improvements they got in, and I love subjective scoring questionnaires. Why? Because patients, yes, it's important to optimize biomarkers that are objective measures and markers of well-being. But overwhelmingly, what people are most concerned with is their form and their function. Like, people do not come to me and say, Dr. Stillman, I have an elevated homocysteine or an abnormal apolipoprotein, whatever. They're like, I'm tired and foggy and inflamed. Help me feel and function better. And what you will overwhelmingly find is that when you fix the symptoms at the root cause, the biomarkers come into range as a matter of course. There's also this bad disconnect in the conventional medical model of, well, we have to validate it all with things like vital signs or lab values because the patient's subjective experience is not trustworthy. It's true that people will confabulate things. They will be placebo responders versus placebo non-responders. They'll make things up. They'll have recall bias. The mind will play all kinds of tricks on you. But at the end of the day, when you have patients coming back to your practice and follow up and they're saying, I'm 70% better, I'm 80% better, I'm 100% better, my brain fog's gone, my fatigue is gone, my pain is gone. What else do you need? So we see this. And so if you were going to come to me and say, what can you study? What can you study in your practice? I'd say, here's where they were when we started. Here's where they were when we finished. Here's the percent improvement.
Yeah. And that's exactly what practice-based research looks at is there's, you're on the front lines of the chronic illness epidemic, in the weeds with real people living real lives. You don't get to control for much. You get the patients you get. They live where they live. They do what they're going to do. Their compliance is all over the map. And you're finding ways to help get them better. That's the research we need.
Yes.
The real world, real life. Okay. And the academic research that's giving us the mechanisms of actions and the details of all of the cellular and subatomic, reactions, and wonderful. Like, now we can explain things that are going on, but let's start applying it, because on the one hand, they're like, oh, that subjective data is not good enough. On the other hand, if they go to a regular doctor instead of a doctor like you, they get your labs are normal, or no, you have fibromyalgia, not much we can do. Come back when you can't walk.
Right. I know.
So
oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's the system, not necessarily the people, but the system is set up to disqualify evidence and force people to stay suffering with symptoms that could be helped with the evidence they're disqualifying.
Absolutely. And it's all about the economic model. If you look at the way that the current model makes money, not only does it seek to monopolize and cartelize and then drive up prices, which is, of course, morally and ethically wrong and somehow legal because they basically buy all the politicians, just in case you didn't know that. What they then do is they say, okay, well, now we're gonna get you into the primary care doctor. They're going to run some tests. Oh, you've got an abnormal cholesterol. You need this drug. Now you're paying dollars, pennies, depends on how your insurance is set up, right? Every month for this drug. You do that for the rest of your life. But then on top of that, the bills start to mount. You've got the trauma or the heart attack or the stroke or whatever. Now you got some chronic residual disease from that. You don't fully recover from the traumatic brain injury. You don't fully recover from the heart attack. You don't fully recover from the stroke because no one is focusing on optimizing physiologic function. It's all about just putting out fires. And there's this total blackout on the information of what actually works because of the way the journal system is set up. So then you end up in a scenario where, oh, well, now it's not just a $2, $3, $4 copay for a visit or a medication. It's a $90,000 surgical procedure for a chronic degenerative illness that was totally preventable, right? I mean, the back surgery industry in the United States, I don't know if it's multi, I don't know, million, billion, but it's huge. And the industry is kind of, if you step back, sort of like a tragic joke. Like back pain is 100% preventable and treatable with very, very rare exceptions. You know, like you fell off of a scaffold at a construction site and, you know, you hit cement at 50 feet. Okay, you're going to have some pain, but even those guys can get these amazing recoveries. So their model is this trickle of money and then this massive payout, which means that they have this gross, perverse incentive to keep people getting sicker before they ultimately die. And what I found taking care of patients in the real world was they had variable appetite and enthusiasm for getting healthy. But if you just focused on serving the ones who were really enthusiastic, they wanted to feel 8, 9, 10 out of 10 in terms of their subjective well-being, which is what we track in the practice overwhelmingly. If you just focused on serving those people and you had them pay a membership fee, and then you did things like gave them discounts on supplements or reduced prices for consultations, they'd pay that fee and you'd keep them healthy after you get them healthy from wherever they were before. And everyone's really happy. And they're not having heart attacks and strokes and all this other stuff because you're really able to focus on prevention. And so we did track that data. And I include the data that we collected in the book, which is basically how much did you improve in your program or membership with us? And I don't remember if I put this in the book, but you know, it's like 98% of our patients would refer their friends and family, and we're in the top 10% of patient satisfaction as a practice. This is not a coincidence. Like, and so, you know, at some point we're going to put together our data and publish it with you, I hope. But that will be a big project. And because I want people to see, like, this is what happens when you have a different model.
Yes. It's, you know, it's just kind of, it's a little sad to me that you have to like proactively seek out this kind of care. It's, you know, I mean, you're a very talented doctor, but anyway, we could all be feeling really much better, and we could be on the path to feeling better because, you know, I think when you talk about prevention, that's really important. And so I find, and what I see, and, you know, I've done this myself, is like people want like the holy grail of supplements or the holy grail of strategies where they're going to be like, wow, you know, and that, as you said, that happens. And for one person, it's like a vitamin C protocol. For another person, it's morning sunlight. For, you know, it's when you put in the missing piece of the puzzle, you can have extraordinary and immediate results. But a lot of the time, it's just a positive compound over time. So yes. And I think it's good to have little reminders. So I, you know, do all the things I do. You know, circadian optimization is foundational to my life. I try to spend a lot of time outside, take a small number of supplements. I wear, you know, the X39 patch every day. And, you know, and I get to where I'm like, oh, you know, I guess it's all working. I don't know. And then I picked up a book about hormones, and this doctor was describing the state of the women coming into his practice, women my age, and the symptoms he's describing. I was like, oh my God, like I'm doing amazing. I don't know what my problem was, thinking, oh, does this really work? Like, you know, I'm a little occasionally tired Like, whereas these women, like their hair were falling out and they excessive weight gain and mood swings. And they all of a sudden they hate their husbands and like all of this stuff. I was like,
oh, I know.
We need that reminder. And I guess my point is when you do preventative paths, sometimes it's easy to forget what great work is being done.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I sometimes lose track of that. Well, I would lose track of it worse if I didn't have patients to tell me, because they tell me every day pretty much, what's working, what's not working. And that's really fun and gratifying and interesting. So.
Yeah. And okay, so I want to talk about my personal approach, which is number one, I'm like, lazy is kind of a harsh word, but I don't like to have to think about my routines. I don't like to have to overthink things and measure things and do a lot. So I like a set it and forget it approach
of course.
to taking care of my health, where I'm like, all right, I will make the effort to integrate this new habit. But once I'm through the hump of the challenge of integrating that habit, I don't want to have to think about it anymore. So light is a great example, right? Like I just got it all set up so it's like dim in the evenings and pitch dark in the bedroom, and I go outside in the morning and I don't have to think about it. I just know over time it's compounding to my benefit in the short and long term.
Yep. Yes.
And so that's kind of how I evaluate if I'm going to take a new thing on board. And like, how is this going to play out? Is it compounding to my benefit over time, or are there side effects? So I don't know if you remember a few years ago, I had like a very suspicious tick bite reaction. And so I'm like, you sent me a doxy prescription. I'm like, yes, I will take it, because I will take antibiotics because there are side effects, but it's going to get rid of the infection. And then I will be off of them and I can rebalance and move forward. But I don't take, say, ADHD medication, because I'm like, what's the game plan here? Right. And the game plan is, I don't know, just take it forever. Is that compounding to my benefit? I feel like no. So I don't do that.
You're renting your body from the pharmaceutical industry when you do that, right? That's really all you're doing. It feels weird when you say it that way. It's like, oh, I don't want to rent my body from a pharmaceutical industry. That sounds bad.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. Yeah. Like I'm renting my cognitive capacity from the Vyvanse Corporation. Yeah. I know it's made by some other company, but so that's my gauge. So I'll take some supplements, but not too many, because then it's too much to remember. And over time it's fine. But that is why I love the patches. Like, and you're the one who introduced me to them. And I was
although let's not forget our friend Kathleen Horstmeyer.
Yes.
Because I sent you the patches, or I don't know if I remember if I sent them to you or you bought them, but
it's true.
One way or another.
You mailed them to me and I was like, oh, I'll put these on one day, and threw them in a drawer and forgot about it.
I know. I was surprised by the number of people who did that. But then Kathleen contacted you and you had an experience.
Yeah. And she told me her experience and I was like, what was that thing? But again, back to the thing about wanting to have a dramatic experience, I've sent them to people who are like, I didn't really notice anything. I'm not going to use them anymore. And I'm like, listen.
I know, yeah.
If you can put a little patch on your body that uses your body's own light to teach your cells to regenerate, like, I don't spend any time worrying about aging. I don't care, like, see all this stuff, your stem cells drop off after 30 and I'm like, do they?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So
and if people want to deep dive on this is part 3 of Meredith's 3-part podcast with me on my podcast. We went deep into your experience with the patches. It was a really good podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's on your podcast. Stillman, what is it? Stillman MD?
It's stillmanmd.substack.com or drstillmanuncensored.com.
Okay.
But I bring that up because it's funny you're talking about your approach, because I've been there for a lot of it. And, our process is based on what you just said, which is somebody comes in, they're very unwell. And that was part one of your podcast with me, where we talked about what was going on in your life and how you were feeling. And then we know that we need to do, I used to call it an audit. I don't call it that anymore because it doesn't sound good. But really, that's fundamentally what it is. We have to look at what are all the things you're doing every day that are either not building your health up and compounding, as you mentioned, or that are undermining your health and are compounding similarly to like debt, right? And this is how we, fix, repair, deficit and make sure that deposits outpace withdrawals eventually. That is the name of the game. So we go through that process with people. We build all those habits into their diet, lifestyle, their daily routine. And as we do that, we layer on therapeutics that a lot of what they're doing is replacing what the body has chronically developed severe deficiencies of. So vitamin C, MSM, iodine, all the other vitamins, minerals, nutrients, we use all of them. And as that happens, people can then do less and less and less and less and continue to function at a high level. What I think is really interesting about this is kind of like, having worked with people for multiple years at this point in my own private practice, people get to a point where they're like, how many more lab tests do I need? How many more supplement protocols should I do? If you look in my world at the practitioners like me who have, we're our own experiments for sure. And we're so curious about what's going to happen next. If we're doing quarterly lab testing and supplement protocols that are, most people would consider like too much, draining, right? We'll still see shifts. Like we'll still see, say, eliminations of heavy metals or other toxins. But I've also had the experience with patients where, and I've had this experience myself, where you have seasons of life where you do not have time for that. Somebody else in your life needs you. Someone else in your life needs your time. And it might not be someone, it might be a business, it might be some kind of endeavor that you care about. And it's not that you put your health on the back burner, but you just say, look, I'm going to take the time I was going to put into more aggressive self-care and put it into just living my life and fulfilling my purpose, which I think actually for me is it's some of my favorite conversations that I have with patients, because the funny thing about, I'm tired, I'm foggy, I'm inflamed, which is the sort of typical picture I see in the practice, is it's not that they're tired, foggy, and inflamed. It's that they're not showing up for people the way that they wish they could. It's that they're not able to be who they want to be. They're not able to chase their calling. Like I'm sort of blown away by people, because I would see this regularly, particularly in the conventional system. It's like they have severe pain, they have anxiety, they have depression, they have, chronic diseases of all kinds, but they're out there and they're taking drugs or they're doing things to compensate, and they're still like driven and excited, and they're not changing their diet or their lifestyle because they're still able to go out and succeed and do what they feel called to do. And I'm not endorsing that. I think that's a bit like, I don't know, continuing to drive your car when it's on fire. I think you should pull over and sort things out and then get back to the road. And that's ultimately, eventually, that's what happens. Those people die early, having not been able to really fulfill, what they could have fulfilled. But yeah, we take that as a very, my approach in the practice is I want to take people from 0, which is where they are when they start with us, to 7 to 10, and then I want to keep them there. But how much effort we put to keeping them from 7 to 10 is really up to them. And we can be very minimalistic and we can be very aggressive. We can be using 8 different patches. I don't actually know if there's 8, but lots of patches, and we can be using lots of supplements and lots of different cool protocols. But, I also have patients who are like, look, I just want to take a couple of, vitamin mineral supplements a day. I want to take my bioidentical hormones, slap a patch on. That's it. Great. We can cover your bases that way and prevent you from losing progress. You just have to understand that you're probably not going to see huge breakthroughs. Sometimes you do, for the record, just with that, but you're probably not going to see the kind of breakthroughs you would see if we were being more aggressive, right? And this is very much I view it as a shared decision with the patient, because I don't have to live with their side effects, their symptoms, their credit card bill, all those things. And my responsibility is to inform them what's likely to happen based on my experience. That's how I view it. And then they have to make the decision about what's worth it for them. Totally different approach, paradigm, and bedside manner than the conventional system.
Totally different. And I love what you're observing and holding space for, which is that people, we want to feel better in order to live our life, in order to live out our life's purpose.
Yes.
And that is the greatest motivator. And
yes,
people often ask me about, different health trends or this or that, or the supplement of the week. And I'm like, I don't know about any of that stuff. I just have my fundamentals because I don't actually live to follow health trends. I live to live my life. And that brings us to the light water machine.
Oh, good. Love how you brought it back around to that.
Yeah. Well, it actually ties into exactly what we're talking about right now, because so I ordered this machine, the X2O from LifeWave, where David Schmidt it just doesn't seem possible, but it is, where he's found a way to trap biophotons in water. Then you press the button, you fill your glass up with the biophoton-enhanced water. You drink it, the biophotons are released inside your body. And here's what I want to talk to you about. So I did have like my initial, upon drinking it, it was like, I do not drink and I do not take drugs medically or recreationally. Like I have not done that in over 20 years. But I felt like a little like, woo, like a little like extra happy. And then over the days, I had like some light physical detox. But what was the most...
That's a great euphemism for what most people describe. Just to be totally candid.
Yes. Listen. Okay. So, but the real, like what I really noticed drinking this light water was I felt like I had just left a spiritual retreat. Like, that feeling where you've gone away and you've done like really deep work and really deep reflection. And then you come back into your life and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need to change this and I need to do that. I cleaned out all the closets in my children's room. I cleaned out the basement and took like 9 trash bags of junk to the depot. I deleted all the apps I don't use off my phone. Like I just had this like huge emotional response of, so the detox, like clearing out my body. Yeah. But also clearing out my energy, clearing out my world. And I just wanted to share that with you. That
I love that.
I'm in week 3 and that's how it's going. It is an emotional and spiritual release and response more than a physical one.
I love that you put it that way, because what I started to find taking care of people was that frequently we would get to a place where the health outcome they desired required a change in the way they thought, felt, or functioned in their life. This is a classic example, right? Mom, multiple kids, husband, maybe working part-time or doing something like time intensive. She's homeschooling, she's helping run a family business, something like that. And she's also engaged with something else on the side, civics, school, parent-teacher association, something like that. Church is another big one. And they would say to me, I don't know why I'm not getting better. And a lot of the time it's the stress from those things. And so to me, the real journey is you want this outcome for your health. It's going to require you to either show up in a different way to these scenarios. And a lot of the time it requires you to decide, what am I really here to do? Am I really here to say yes to all of this? Or am I here to say no to some of it and yes to a smaller slice of things? Because if we go back to the whole thing we started with, which is disconnection from nature, what are we saying no to when we connect to nature? We're saying no to endlessly scrolling through the phone. We're saying no to a digital existence. We're saying no to, the convenience of packaged processed food so we can get back to the phone or the whatever. We're saying yes to cooking, meals with our families in a shared space. We're saying yes to board games. We're saying yes to candlelit dinners. We're saying no to some things and yes to other things. And I think what's what I see happening a lot of the time is people's appetites for things and their ambitions for things really are not reasonable or realistic. And believe me, I'm the first person to have to tell myself this. And, in some ways I'm like my own worst patient, but you just have to be real with yourself and the people in your life. I can't keep doing this for you or with you. And it's not that I don't want to, it's that I only have so many hours, so much time, so much energy. And I got to, change my priorities, or these are my priorities and I'm going to honor them. And that to me is one of the most interesting things or pieces of what I do is you're helping people understand, who am I really supposed to be within the constraints of this physical vessel that I have right now? And that's a deeply personal self-exploration, which, I was never really into that when I got into training. I was very much like, oh, what are the biomolecules and the chemicals and the pathways and the da-da-da-da-da-da. I was very mechanistic and reductionistic in my thinking, but this emerged out of the practice of, oh, wow, I can't just make people better by throwing pills and potions and lotions and powders at them. There has to be this relationship and this dialogue because stress alone will just stop the healing process. Doesn't matter if you're doing good things. And, people need to understand stress is this very, they make it this nebulous thing, and they also make it this thing where it's just the obvious stuff. Like work can be stressful, kids can be stressful, relationships can be stressful, right? But I also think people don't realize it's the stress of having the TV on for 3 hours after 5 o'clock. It's the stress of listening to music all day. It's the stress of having too many things on your plate. It's the stress of not delegating well. It's the stress of, EMF, the stress of air pollution. The more you can pull that stress back and the more you can create a life that's very intentional and honoring what you're really here to do, I think the more people flourish. And that's, that's another side of that coin, is that the more people are connected to their purpose, the longer they'll live. Like my dad lived to 86. He passed this year, and that guy woke up and he worked so hard every single day. And it was the year that he decided he was going to stop working on his nonprofit that was his passion project that he died. And the year you retire is the most dangerous year of your life.
Yeah.
Which makes the whole idea of retirement, I'm not working to retire. I'm working to just get to do more fun, new and exciting things in a different way in different stages and ages of life, which is really what most people should be thinking through.
Yes.
When are you going to transition from, youth, where you're just being productive, you're doing a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the boring stuff, a lot of the heavy lifting, then middle life, you've learned something valuable, hopefully. You're doing more complex, interesting things that you enjoy, but there's still some drudgery in there, versus the older years of life where you're more training, fine-tuning, pouring into, edifying, teaching the next generation so that society continues to function well and your kids have a future, right? That is, very much a part of what I do as well. It's helping people understand, where are you in this cycle?
Beautiful.
Thanks.
And yeah, it is the whole point of seeking to regain and retain our health, is truly to live a purposeful life.
Yeah. And my favorite quote about this is this guy named George Mallory, who was the first guy to summit Everest. That when he was going to summit Everest, they asked him, why do you want to climb this cold, dangerous mountain that no one's ever climbed? He said, because it's there. So if you ask people who are really driven, why do you want to become a Navy SEAL? Why do you want to start an Institute for Applied Quantum Biology? Why do you want to get married, have kids, start a homestead, do this thing? They're like, I don't really know, but there's just this piece of me, this force inside of me that's it's pulling me, driving me inexorably. I can't not do this. If you put me in prison, I would think about it all day until I got out. That kind of drive, right?
Yes. Yeah. And we're imbued with that for a reason. So let's live it out, see where it goes, help each other along the way.
And let's tie it back. And let's tie it back to the light, because ultimately that feeling and that drive is emerging from your being, not just your brain, but your heart. And it emerges, and really it's all about the interactions of light and matter within your being to create that behavior. And that's what I think is so interesting. And so in many respects challenging about modern life is that all of this light, all of the matter you're exposed to, that you ingest, it can have these subtle effects on your physical vessel, which will then have these radical changes into what you call your spirit or your soul or your being, right? And so that's why when people are like, I'm just going to eat the junk food, or I'm just going to do it's like, hang on a minute, stop. And that's why when people like you go the other direction and you say, wow, I bought this really amazing water filtration system that imbues the water with light and hydrogen, and you have this spiritual experience. That's what we're really talking about for people. It's not just reverse aging. It's like, I don't like these phrases because they just get so, people who tend to use them tend to not be people I always like or agree with or appreciate, but like your consciousness elevates, your way of thinking, your way of being, your way of treating other people. Like, real story, yesterday, talked to a patient. This is the most touching story. She's a mom, her teenage daughter is just going into her teenage years. And she says, Mom, the world like sucks and is terrible. And she said, before I started this program with you, Dr. Stillman, I would have gotten into moralizing her. Like, you are what you say, and you attract the energy you put out, and you can't think like that, and blah, 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 blah. And instead, she just listened and, in your words, held space. And then she had this little voice in her head that said, the peonies are ready. And she went down to the garden. She cut these flowers. She put them in a vase, and she dropped them off in her daughter's room while she was out. And her daughter came back and noticed the flowers. And she said, Mom, thank you so much for the flowers. Completely changed this experience. Right? I know.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is about becoming the fullest, most authentic, most in touch, most fun, most compassionate, most exceptional version of yourself. And why would you not want to do that?
Why wouldn't you? Oh
right.
My God. That's beautiful, Leland.
Yeah. It was one of the most touching testimonials I've ever heard from a patient, by far. Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. That's what it is. Right there.
Yeah.
Thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
here.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
thank
delightful.
you. Yeah, I have to add, too, that she was really over the moon for the Aeon patch, by the way.
Oh.
So if people are wondering, where do you start this journey? I would go ahead and start with the X39 patch, the Aeon patch, and the X2O LifeWave water machine, because let's just say that's a very powerful combo to get started with.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say those things, plus spending time outside and having dark nights.
Yeah, of course.
I'm
all
good.
The good things.
Yeah. No, of course.
Yeah.
But like, those are just like, if I have those things in place, you just said, and like the light, I'm like, I don't think too hard about anything else, really. Like,
yeah,
just don't.
I get it. I know. I get a lot of patients coming to me with sort of that sentiment, like, I'm doing this, 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 and this. What else do I need to do? And we kind of fine tune things and set a plan, like come back in 6 months, come back in a year. Looks like you're in a good spot. It just depends on what they want. Depends on what they're struggling with. Depends on where they're trying to get to. Yeah. We have an Olympic triathlete. He's trying to get on the triathlete team for the U.S. His podcast is coming out soon. Now that I think about it, it hasn't come out yet. Because he came to us with some issues that were holding his training back. And he can't come to me and be like, I would like to do less and be an Olympic athlete. It's like, no. You signed up for the most difficult thing in the entire world. You have to be willing to do everything. You can't say no to any of it. Like if your girlfriend gets in the way, you got to be willing to say like, no, just no. Not in this season, not while I'm trying to get to the top of the podium, right? And it's just about choices. Who are you? What are you here to do? What is it worth to you? And, I don't want anyone to feel like shame or guilt or like none of that, because it doesn't need to be that way. Because when you're really in touch with who you are and what you're supposed to do here, that's when you can let all that go. You're not having all this, well, I should do this, I should do that. This is another story actually that came up recently. I was talking to a patient who was just so overwhelmed. And I just said, I noticed you saying things like, I should do this and I should do that. But when we say things like that to ourselves, or when other people say that to us, it generally creates this feeling of overwhelm. And the reality is that what your body is saying to you right now is that you don't have the capacity to do all the things that you're doing. And you need to honor that. And so instead of saying like, I should have done something instead of taking a nap, try this. I had a need to take a nap because my body was tired. And so I wasn't able to do this other thing that I'd committed to doing. And then ask the question, how can I fulfill the need of myself or others to do this thing that I was going to do? Let's just say, make some examples. Do a task at work, complete a project around the house, fold the laundry, cook lunch, make tea, whatever. How can I meet my need or someone else's need for us to get that thing done while also honoring my need to take a nap? And, good news is if you get into good enough shape, you shouldn't need an afternoon nap. Bad news is you might have to push some of the stuff that's currently on your plate off right now so you can refill your gas tank so you can get back to that. But this should, have to, must, this creates these very toxic intrapersonal, like with yourself dynamics. I see it oftentimes from people outside of the patient, like a toxic or narcissistic or even psychopathic spouse, family member, friend, boss. I sometimes recommend a therapeutic relationship change. And I've had cases where it's like, yeah, the day I broke up with my boyfriend was the last day I had a headache. How about that? No supplement protocols required, just a therapeutic relationship adjustment.
Yeah. And again, like back to what we were talking about earlier, like there's no part of our life that isn't connected to the other part of it.
I know.
And
yeah, totally.
So to take a step back could be anything.
Yeah, could be anything. And I think connecting to nature is the best way to get the best energies in order to make those decisions and understand what you're supposed to do. Because I just see people getting so confused and turned around about who they are, what they're here to do, what's important to them when they're inundated by this fake light, fake, electromagnetic pollution, processed food, the hustle culture, whatever you want to call it. It's so easy to unplug from all that, pun intended.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming and we lose track of our inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think weirdly, not weirdly, but now that we know knowing what we know, but drinking light water brought that voice. It made it clearer. Like,
I love it.
I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this or maybe I'll do that. It's like, no, I'm going to do this. And it was just, I'm in a deeper connection with my inner voice in a way that I usually have to have a much more robust spiritual practice to be in that space. And I'll fully admit right now, my spiritual practice at this moment in time is not super robust. So, it's just so interesting. Like, it's just so amazing. It's so amazing how little we really understand, I guess. This is where I get just humbled by the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's so interesting. We know very little in relative terms, which makes it all the more sort of maddening when people have the conceit of acting like they know everything.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Leland, thank you so much. This was really fun. I know we're going to do it again very soon. I strongly recommend for everybody to order The End of Autoimmunity by Dr. Leland Stillman. Depending when this comes out, it might be on pre-order, but just go ahead and get yourself on the list. This book is a really important reference from a physician who has been in the trenches, paying attention to all of the things for a long time. And like Leland he is like in the weeds with people every single day. You are not a doctor who reads research and then tells everyone what they should do based on your thoughts about the research. Leland's book is based on real outcomes with real people in real life, which is what we all are. And so I just really want to strongly recommend everyone order that and follow him on Substack, and, book a call if you are in need of a physician who understands.
Yeah, and I want to mention too, if you enjoyed what I had to say here, I teach currently twice weekly and have a Q&A for our online community. If you want access to that, look around here for a description and a link to either book a call with a member of my team or join the community.
Fantastic.
I talk about this all day, but a lot of it's behind the scenes at our community. And that's where I have the time to really get to know people, post, comment, answer their questions in more detail.
Perfect. And we will put links to all of that. StillmanMD.com is, I believe, where you can find it, but we'll also put all the links in the show notes.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely. Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Well done. You've made it to the very end of the episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate having you here. You make it the whole thing worthwhile. Come and join the club at reverseagingclub.substack.com.